tell us the story of your first year.
So when I think back to my first year of teaching, I have two students that really come to mind. One was a young lady who was kindergarten, so she was very young, and she is what you would picture if someone told you you had the ideal kindergarten student. She would sit down in her seat and do her work, and whenever she was finished, she would fold her hands on her desk and wait for you to give her instructions of what to do next. And honestly, I would have been slightly concerned, but when we went outside to play at recess, she hit that playground running, and all of the children loved her. The other student was um, a young boy, and kindergarten was his out. He really didn't get out much at home. And I remember having to basically beg his father to let him go on a field trip to the zoo. He refused to let him go. His 11-month younger brother was also in another kindergarten class at the school, and we kept asking, can he go to the zoo? Can they go to the zoo? What can we do to get them to go to the zoo? And finally, the father agreed that if I held their hands the whole time we were at the zoo, that the children would be allowed to go to on the field trip to the zoo. And I remember going through the zoo, being pulled by these two young boys because they wanted to see everything and experience everything. And it just really opens your eyes up to some of the things that students haven't experienced and how eager they are to learn when it's in that kind of mode. I've actually been blessed that I've been in contact with those two students later in life. Um, the young lady graduated as valedictorian of her high school, did her undergraduate work at the University of Maryland, and is now doing medical school at UMBC. The young man has grown into a nice young man. He's doing roofing, and they've both grown into nice young adults.
So my first year of teaching, I was actually 35. I didn't start teaching until I was 35, and I landed a job at Patapsco High School Center for the Arts. So I was pretty happy about that. I was excited to be at a magnet school. The magnet school was within the regular population, so I had both magnet students and regular students. First class, my first day of school. It's actually the second day of school because we had ninth grade only first day. So second day of school, full class, fundamentals of arts kids. And the class was really full. I didn't have enough chairs for everybody. I didn't have enough table space for everyone. So I had kids sitting along the edge at the counters along the edge. And I got everybody in, took attendance, had everybody seated. It was quiet. Missing a kid or two. And they were filling out some forms, and a kid comes in, a young lady, walks in the door, and walks up to another kid. And first day, mind you, so nobody really knows where they're going when they first walk in. Grabbed her, threw her on the floor, said, "Get out of my effing chair," and a cat-fight ensued, of course. And so it was first day, first period, girl fight. Lots of scratching and clawing happening, and the phone didn't work. And the other kids were dumbfounded. They just kind of sat there staring at what was happening. So I'm trying to get between them and trying to send a kid out to get someone to help me. And they didn't teach you this at MAEA, how to manage a girl fight. And so the other teacher came in. We finally got them separated. One girl ended up with like an earring ripped out of her ear and no shirt on. I don't even know how that happened. And the other girl had like scratches on her face. And neither of them ever came back, but I did. I came back the next day, which kind of surprised me, really. Yeah.
I teach at Sunbrook Magnet Middle School in Baltimore County Public Schools. It was kind of a long road, but I studied art and art history in college, and I think my first experience where I knew that I wanted to be some kind of arts educator was when I was studying abroad in France my junior year of college, and I was really passionate about the art history that I was learning there because it was just everywhere. It was like living inside history. It was amazing, and I made some friends there in Paris, and I remember taking them to the Louvre one night. It was one of those nights where the museum's open late, and it was lots of fun. We like went to a cafe beforehand, and they were all computer science majors, and had very little art knowledge or background. So it was really fun to take them on a tour and teach them what I had been learning in school there and try to like share my passion and excitement for it and interest them in art and teach them what was so fascinating and interesting about it. And it was really amusing because I was teaching them little bits of French history and they were French. So I was teaching them a little bit about their own cultural heritage. I was in an immersion program in Paris where they placed me at 2 different universities. So I went to one university for my art history classes and one university for my drawing classes. I was thinking about becoming a curator, but the more I read these articles in my seminars, the more I realized that they were written by academics who were just writing for other academics. And there was all this interesting stuff that just wasn't getting shared with everyday people that could find it really exciting too. So I felt like I would have a better experience if I were doing like what I did in Paris and teaching people who might not have an art background. I remember my friends in France were so interested because they were seeing things they recognized that they had seen before that had sort of become a part of pop culture, but they didn't realize. For instance, we saw Liberty leading the people in the museum, and I remember my friend hung a poster of it in his room afterwards. So it was just really fun to see people get excited about art, and I wanted to do something that would help get people excited about art, not people who are already excited about art. So I went into museum education after college. I ended up working in the education division at the Walters Art Museum, and giving school tours was my favorite part of the job. So I taught a homeschool workshop too, and it just further affirmed for me that teaching was my favorite part. So I ended up going back to get my teacher certification, and now I teach middle school art.